welcome, everybody, to another edition of Hot Program. I'm your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. And now a man who had breakfast with a rheumatologist that knew very little about interior decorating. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am okay, Pocket Locker. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. Um,
Good.
yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So today, this this video we're watching is from, I forget what this guy called. Truth is Speaking. So you already know it's sitting on some bullshit. And and we gotta call that out for a second because again, like I'm really trying to get people to understand Christianity has to go down with Trump, and liberal Christianity is not the solution. Liberal Christianity has to go down right along with it because it's useless. And this is another way you can tell that it's useless. I need Christians to understand this. Christians need you to understand this. Every time you say truth, we know you're lying. Think about that. That's what it means to be a Christian. Look, what is Donnie's channel called? Standing for truth, reasonable faith, truth, reason, logic, fail every time. You're always lying. So this is part of this liberal myth making that I'm here to deconstruct. I'm sick of Christians playing in my face about the word truth. Like, I'm sorry, you don't get to claim that you have the truth on your side and then sit up here and lie to us. But anyway, this is called How Conservative Christians Have Betrayed Christ. And he's not wrong about conservative Christians, just to put it out there. He's not definitely not wrong about conservative Christians. Although I would say kind of is wrong about conservative Christians. I mean, they're ridiculous, but I don't know. Have they betrayed Christ? Like, who knows? Who cares? He's right that they're crazy and they're wrong, but like most people, his solution is liberal Christianity. And I need people to understand that this is not something I'm willing to tolerate. And I'm certainly not willing to tolerate the liberalizing of Christianity by atheists. Um, Sorry, it's just not true. All right, let's just go ahead and let's roll the tape. Let this dude jump in and see what he's talking about.
If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I often take aim at the current political administration, and in
Yeah, there's a lot
particular,
of
the
Trump
professed Christians who
thumbnails.
support it. Some of my best performing videos have dealt with the glaring contradiction of a people who claim to follow a savior, known for his love, mercy, and compassion, yet in their politics, they follow someone who is the polar opposite of everything they claim to believe. And every time I point out that blatant hypocrisy, I get the same flood of comments. Why don't you talk about the Democrats? Why do you only go after Republicans when the left is just as bad or worse according to Christ's standards?
All right, now this is another
You
here. I
only
want
go
to
after
y'all hear
Republicans
this.
when the left is just as bad or worse according to Christ.
All right. So there's this, yeah, I gotta put y'all on to how insidious this programming is. So there's a lot of subtleties I'm gonna have to bring out. But here's one of them. Who are you talking to? This is how I know that y'all have brain rot. This is how I know that liberal Christians, y'all don't know what time it is. Because you're asking, why do you only go after Republicans when the left is just as bad or worse? Stop, pause right there. Who are you talking to? Who are your friends? My friends don't say that shit to me. I don't get that in the comments of my videos. First off, I don't get that in the comments of my videos because I do go after the left as much as I go
Well,
after
we yeah
Republicans.
we're willing to say that violence coming
but but
from
real
both
talk, I
sides.
don't get this in my we don't get this in our comments because I don't have crazy people in my community who would say something like the left is just as bad or worse. Like, I already know you're hanging
Yeah,
out with
we don't.
conservative brain rot Christianity if this is what you're hearing. And then
Well,
according to Christ's standards, this is the game I'm not willing to play anymore. Go ahead.
well, one would. It makes me wonder. I guess I never really thought about this. Well, if you know that your side is bad, why are you on that side?
That's
If they,
true, right?
if the
Because you're
person who
saying they're
wrote
just
this,
as
if
bad as us.
they're literally making that claim. I know the other side is bad, and my side is as bad.
But that's
So why
like,
are you on that side?
but that's like when they tell me I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. So you're admitting faith is a bad way to decide
Right off
things.
the bat.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. It's like you are so clever that you outed yourself.
Yeah.
That's kind of where
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
come
yeah,
across with that
yeah.
one.
No, that's it. But this is also this is what I mean. Like this is the problem with quote unquote Christians on the left. It's like you totally center the middle, this false middle. You center people on the right. You center these fascists. How do I know? Because apparently a lot of people are asking you, why don't you go after the left? Because they're just as bad or worse. Again, that tells me a lot about the company you keep.
Christ standards. So I finally decided to address the
Oh,
elephant.
the other reason is y'all do this because this is the easy thing. Like y'all keep going after the Christian right because again, and this is something. And I'll say this to a black Christian's face. I don't care. These people on the left, they don't care about marginalized people. They use marginalized people to shame their political opponents. I repeat, they use marginalized people to shame their political opponents. They use marginalized people to shame their political opponents. They don't actually care about the marginalized people. So for this guy who, I'm gonna just put it to this coon's face, isn't gonna be really moving in pro-blackness the way I would want him to, because I know he's gonna be on that white supremacist bullshit. I already know he on that white supremacist bullshit for telling me that his audience is telling him he should be going after the left because they're just as bad as the right. Boom, you already adopting white supremacist talking points. Then you telling me not according to humanity, not according to what's right and wrong, but according to Christ standards. Boom, you already dropping more white supremacist talking points on me. Then later you're going to talk about the marginalization of LGBTQ people and all this. How are you pointing at the right, the conservatives, and talking about them being anti-LGBTQ against LGBTQ, but you're not pointing at your church? This is how easy it is to call these people out. Because again, marginalized people is what they use to shame their political opponents. They don't actually care. So that's already the problem with these people. It's like we keep letting them call out the right because it's politically convenient. It makes them look good, and then they don't have to do anything. And then they can continue to support the status quo. And then really, what do they want to do? They want to give us this nice, friendly, I love you, you love me. It really isn't even Jesus, y'all. It's really Barney the clown. Sorry, Barney the dinosaur. That is really what Christians give us. It's not the Jesus. If you read the Bible, you're not going to see the I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. You're not going to get that in the Bible. Where you will get that is Barney the dinosaur. So this Barney the dinosaur Jesus of the political left's imagination is really just what they use to reinforce the status quo. Like that's not going to get us reform. That's not going to get us the revolution we need. It's just going to get us whitewashed standard American Jesus Christianity. Go ahead, my one black friend. I'm ranting.
Yeah. Many of our viewers have heard me talk about the fluffy God, right? That is the I love you, you love me God of the Bible that some people find. That's who they are. So that's what they see God as, when they read the Bible. They can do away with wrath and vengeance and leave that up to God and actually choose to be happy, whatever their circumstances are. Not that bad things don't still happen, they do.
I don't
The
think that's who they are. You know who I think they really are though? Honestly,
Go ahead.
I think they're like gilded cage uh infants. Like they're the children of like rich daddy, and they know that like they have privilege. Basically, they know they get to move in privilege because they have rich daddy, but they also are terrified of their dad. He's never around. He's pretty much an awful person. They brag about being at this prestigious boarding school, but they actually deep down inside they know that at this prestigious boarding school because their parents don't actually want to live with them. I'm just saying there's a lot of motivations to put your children in a boarding school.
But that's not everyone. That's not everyone.
But that's them. That's their family dynamic. It's not everybody, but it's their family dynamic. Their dad doesn't want to be around them.
I'm willing to say there's a segment that may be that sort of thing may be true about, but I don't think that's all of them.
No, but what I'm saying is I get that you think that they believe that about themselves, but I'm saying it's fundamentally not true, even if they do believe that about themselves. Because the reality is that's
I'm a non-believer. I don't believe in any gods.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's an important distinction, right? So those really nice ones still think you're going to burn in hell. Those really nice ones still think being homosexual is a sin. Those really nice ones will still defend God murdering everything on the planet as part of his divine plan because he works in mysterious. That's what I'm saying. So like they may be like, oh, I love everybody. I'm like this really friendly Christian. I'd love to bake you apple pie. But they still know some really dark, deep, uncomfortable truths about their faith, and they've made their peace with them. They've made their peace with that their God is going to send most people to hell. They've made their peace with the fact that it's a sin for man to lie with man. They've made their peace with, these things that I wouldn't make my peace with.
I think you just did something I was hoping that I'd see less of in this world from believers is lump people together.
Yeah, but I have to talk about populations. There's billions of people.
You may, but also I think we have to respect the fact that some people will stand up and define themselves, and we have to respect that when they do. Because
but is it Christian then?
But look at I bring up Frank Turek, and he's an example, and maybe he's the worst example. He will take atheists as a group and vilify all of us. That's not fair.
I think it is fair. It's probably not fair because when he does it, it's a misrepresentation. But you have to hang on. Let me make a distinction.
You do the same thing. Can't you misrepresent?
No. Here's the distinction. Here's the distinction.
Go ahead.
I don't have time, energy, or effort. I don't care. When we talk about because we're talking about groups, and when I'm talking about groups, I need people to hear me talking about groups. I don't have time to talk about individuals. There's billions of individuals. So every time I say the Christian right supports Donald Trump, well, they don't all support Donald Trump. I know they don't all support Donald Trump. I'm not a fucking idiot. I recognize there's variation, but I need to meaningfully talk about the behavior of groups without people constantly throwing themselves in front of the bus. Like, no, they're not all like that. I know they're not all like that, but they are largely like that to the point that we have to be able to distinguish, why do they not act like us? And yes, it is meaningful to talk about groups. Groups are meaningful units of analysis. So when we say Republicans support Jeffrey Epstein, we're euphemizing. We're saying, by and large, a lot of Republicans support Jeffrey Epstein. By and large, the political leadership has supported Epstein. Are we literally saying? Are we saying every single one of them? No, we just don't have time to make these considerations. But the other thing is,
I'm going toe to toe with the bullies on Facebook. Some of them, pocket locker. And what I consistently find when I say, like, you're helping them defend pedophiles, you're defending a pedophile, blah, 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 blah. There are so many who come right back at me and say, no, I'm not. I don't care whether or not the pedophile is a Democrat or a Republican. They can definitely go to prison with the rest of them. And these are right-leaning people who hurl insults with no problem.
But here's the bigger question. So here's
no problem.
I got that. So here's my question though. How many of them vote Republican of those people? Are they yes or no? You think they were Republican voters?
They're Republican voters.
Well, are you yes or no that they were probably Trump voters?
The way they defend Trump, no doubt about it. They're
Okay.
Trump
So
supporters.
that is my point.
Even
my
now.
point is this exactly. So my point is to say, even the nice ones, even the friendly ones,
I don't think these
even
are
the
friendly
ones
or
who
nice people.
even the ones who don't say the bad things, they're still bad. Like the point is to say, hey, you might be saying fuck the Epstein files. You might be saying take down all the politicians who are caught up in the Epstein files. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. You might be saying with your whole chest, I stand with the victims. You might be saying with your whole chest, I don't support pedophiles. But the truth is, institutionally, when you went into that ballot box and checked the boxes or however you voted, cast your vote, you did in fact support the pedophiles. You did in fact institutionally empower the people who are responsible for this. And what I'm saying about these Christians, even these nice, friendly Christians, again, because I'm not going to back down from what I said, they have accepted some toxic shit. Their Christianity is in fact toxic. I get that they're nice people, but that just makes them suckers. That just makes them victims who have been so manipulated that they now have atheists defending them. That's literally my point, is that instead of us being able to move in solidarity against something that is clearly not true and clearly evil, these people have done such a good job of twisting everyone into a pretzel, making them comfortable and afraid to challenge them, that now people who don't even believe that shit and know it's evil are like, well, let's not just take it from them. Let's not lump them all together. Let's not. What are we doing, y'all? Christians believe what Christianity, they have to believe in Christianity. If you're going to tell me, oh, they think LGBTQ people are fine. I don't give a fuck. That's not Christian. It's cool that they personally are able to take part of their faith and stick it over here. But the shit is in the goddamn Bible, and it's the reason for most of the discrimination and hatred against LGBTQ people. So it is Christian, because it's a fundamental Christian teaching and it's in the Christian Bible. To the extent that this person wants to take it and just set it over here so that they don't have to deal with it, like, fine, but I don't have time for that. In the meantime, Christianity is responsible because it says it in the goddamn book. These people believe we're going to hell. Are there tons of Christians that you're fine to say, oh, well, no, actually, I think you're fine. I don't think you're going to go to hell. I don't even think hell's a real place. Oh, you're just not going to be in God's presence. Oh, you're just going to be annihilated. Oh, actually, no, God will judge your heart and your character. So I actually believe you're going to go to heaven. Oh, no, I actually believe in your last moment, you might get suspended for half a second. And then Jesus is going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, last chance, and then you're going to give your heart to Jesus, and then you're going to go like, yes, there's a gazillion fucking ways these morons interpret this bullshit. But at the end of the day, when I say them fuckers think we're going to hell, I'm speaking to the fact that by and large, it is fundamental motherfucking Christian doctrine that you either believe in Jesus to be saved from your sin, or you go to hell. I don't have time to talk about how billions of them want to tap dance around, again, what is a fundamental doctrine. And why are they tap dancing around it? They're tap dancing around it because they actually know that it's true, that that's part of their doctrine, and they know it's super fucked up. And again, instead of having the actual character and the actual decency to come out and say what they really need to say with their chest, which is Christianity is fucked up, and yeah, it does say that really immoral shit, and I, as a grown-ass person, recognize that Christianity is fucking evil, so I'm gonna leave this shit because it doesn't make any sense. Instead, they go, oh, well, no, actually, God works in mysterious ways, and yes, well, to me, it seems rather harsh, but it's my God, and he just can't be in the presence of sin, and his justice and his mercy endures forever. Like, y'all, look, listen, y'all are better atheists than me. Just be better atheists than me. Y'all got nuance. Y'all got variability. Y'all don't lump them together. Y'all, please carry on. I'm just telling you, I don't have time for that shit. And I'm not interested. Y'all can treat them however you want to treat them. I'm gonna treat them how I want to treat them.
Well, take Pocket Locker's rant and make YouTube shorts out of it for a hot program. I guarantee you the viewership will go to 30,000 new subscriptions in 1 month. I'm an atheist, for those of you who don't know, because I read the Bible. There were things I objected to, like the hell doctrine, prior to reading the entire Bible. I thought that was utterly wrong. Now, reading the Bible along with some of the Apocrypha made the idea of hell ridiculous because it's supposed to be within the earth. The book of Enoch tells us it's in Dudael. The gate to hell is in Dudael. Dudael is a real place. And it's like land of the cauldrons. You'll see that if you Google it, land of the cauldrons. And it's a volcanic place. Well, the ancient people were rather simple in some of their thinking. And they felt that this was a place where you could have this giant hole in the ground where these angels who left their, what is it called, habitations in the heaven to come down to earth. And then they start screwing around down here with human women. And now their kids are the Nephilim and they're evil spirits. When they die, the spirits come out of their body, become demons, a bunch of stuff that's just not true. A modern, rational person can easily know better with a simple Google search. The ancients, maybe not so much, but even they, a lot of them should have figured it out. It is, Pakalaka, your point is not totally void of points or reason, I should say. I think within there you make some good points. It should be difficult for a person to consider their God moral when he causes genocides, when he causes starvation, when he kills King David's son, when he does, like Ezekiel 20, where he orders the Hebrews to sacrifice their firstborn to him, pass them through the fire. And it should be standard practice for believers to actually read the entire Bible before they can just be a believer, before they can say it, right? How do you commit to it? They're in a sense, and I don't say this to be mean, single issue voters into Christianity. They're single issue devotees. I merely don't want to go to hell, or I want Jesus to improve my lifestyle, and so on and so on and so on. They don't take the whole Bible as their guide. So yes, you say Christianity, you want to lump Christians together. um, I think there's a conglomeration to some degree, but within that are the individual pieces of aggregate in there, the pieces of stone that form up that big block that you are suggesting exists. Um, I think the more the average Christian knows, the less they are prone to be a Christian. I really do believe that. As someone who's well informed, I don't think they can keep the illusion up. That's why so many people who go to seminary become non believers because they get the history lesson. They know, well, Gospel of John appears to be fiction, Acts appears to be fiction, and it's modeled on this other work over here, the Bacchae. There's so many things that people learn along the way. Well, wait, this gospel has more than one ending. This gospel has more than two endings. So what's going on here? Oh, the story of the woman taken in adultery doesn't show up in manuscripts until centuries after Jesus is gone. So maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it's not canonical.
So this
Maybe it's
actually
not
ties
true.
into
That doesn't
the
mean it's not canonical. Maybe it's not true.
this
Go
ties
ahead,
into the
Dr.
video.
Locke.
So we should let him go because he
Okay.
kind of ties into this about the single issue, which is these people vote based on their religion. But you brought up something that I think needs to be addressed, and I'm just gonna call it what it is. Religious people scare me. And I don't know if anybody out there's heard of the Stanford prison experiment, but basically, we put a bunch of students in these roles. Some were guards, some were prisoners. And to make a long story short, the prisoners, the guards started to really abuse the prisoners, and the experiment had to be stopped. Um, and it is considered a very powerful lesson about what happens when we give people power and authority over others. And it seems to suggest that putting people in those roles and giving them that status almost creates or substantially contributes towards them being willing to dehumanize and abuse others. And I think this is largely what happens with religion. I think religion is that thing that it gives a person an emotionally powerful reason to believe something that isn't true. And as you know, the cliche, if I can get someone to believe absurdities, I can get them to commit atrocities.
Yeah.
We don't take that seriously enough. So what happens is we get people to believe these absurd things. And now that they need that belief, they have to accept all of the atrocities that come along with it. And that is incredibly scary to me because it means that that person's really, I hate to say this, they've dehumanized themselves. I recognize that in a way I have to, look, conflict is conflict. And part of, I'm a person who really understands conflict. Like conflict is real. And part of conflict is a sense of dehumanization, because if somebody is really after you, if they've really dehumanized you and they're really willing to oppress you, you're going to have to come back with that same strong energy. So they're going to have to, they've shown a certain disregard for you. And the only way to really defend yourself is to be willing to show a certain disregard for them. These are the realities of the world. People that talk aside from that, I'm like, you're just not affected by this. Because if anybody that's affected by conflict understands what time it is. So then what happens is these people need this belief so bad. So now they go along with all this monstrous shit. And then here comes everybody else in the world that should be defending you from these motherfucking monsters, that should be recognizing, no, it's these religious people and their stupid ass ideas that's got them treating everybody all the way fucked up and got our government all the way fucked up. And instead, we defend them because, again, the legitimizing works. The same way their need for their faith legitimized their dehumanization of others, that same religion is used now to legitimize their dehumanization of others. So now we go along and we say, well, you know, it's not that they're a bad person, it's just their religion. Oh, it's not that they're a fucking asshole, it's just that they're a conservative. You know, it's and we euphemize for them. And so then that is so scary. So now when I turn to the religious, I can't count on them to humanize me. I'm a fucking atheist after all. And they have their literal biblical justification to treat me like they're at spiritual warfare against me. They genuinely believe they're at warfare against me, and they live like it. They vote like it. They shop like it. Everything they do is a reflection of the fact that they want to create this Christo-fascist fucking world where people like me are all the way fucked up, and they go about creating that world. And then I turn to the fucking the few allies and other non-believers and progressives and leftists and all of those people, and what they're doing, well, I can't tell them people they're fucked up, it's their religion. No, I can't do anything to stop those people, they're friendly to me. Like it's like, y'all, I'm fucking scared. I'm out here fighting for my motherfucking survival. That's why I ain't got time to be nice to these motherfuckers, because I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death that people act this fucking monstrously and we just pretend like this shit is cute. I don't understand.
In the room, no pun intended. Why do I focus so much on the hypocrisy of the Christian right? Now let me say at the outset, I don't expect this video to convince everyone. Based on the kind of feedback I usually get on my videos from these particular people, I'm certain I won't. But at least this will give me something to point back toward whenever I get to—
And again, like, I normally make Christian content, and for some reason, like, the few fundy types just seem to ignore everything I say on my channel.
those same comments from the same people again. On this video, the next one, or the one after that. And if you're tired of hearing the same false equivalents, that the modern political left and right are somehow equally corrupt, equally lost, and equally distant from the heart of God, this video is for you. God is not—
See this is what, gang, this is what the vibe is. I told y'all, we're between a rock and a hard place. To your right, you have the fundamentalist, evangelical, Christo-fascist right-wingers. And to your left, you have the people that are actually trying to be more Christian. Oh my
the author
goodness.
of confusion. and the church is meant to be a witness to moral truth. So if we can't see the clear difference between right and wrong in the times we're living in, then who will? We of all people can least afford to be ignorant about such matters. And we most of all have an obligation to call out evil, especially when it comes from those who claim the name of Christ.
Oh, Robin, that's the game plan. Robin said we should look at how their actions are speeding up the destruction of their own religion. No, Robin, we're here to accelerate that motherfucker. We're here to cheer it on. That is the mission of this channel. Christianity has to go down with Trump. You hit the nail on the head. That is the accelerant we need. I'm here to light the match. Christianity has to go down. But see, in order for Christianity to go down with Trump, it's the leftists and the liberals we have to call out. See, Robin, you understand. And now you're seeing the vision. Now you understand why we're doing this stream. We're doing this stream because I already know what's happening. I already know my white saviorism over there on the left. All my white saviors, they're coming out to tell us, yay, MAGA's finally going down. MAGA's going down. Yay, we can go back to liberal Christianity of the Democrats. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Y'all didn't do anything about this. Go ahead.
Can you pull up open a Google search and do Revelation 22, 10 and 11? This is for our Christian people who want to rule the world. So you can stop in your tracks right now. And this is
Then
Jesus
he told
telling you not
me,
to.
do not seal up the words.
Can you put it on the screen? Can you put it on the screen?
Then
So
he
now
told
nobody
me,
has to believe what you're saying. They can see it right there.
do not seal up the words of the prophecy of the scroll because the time is near. Let the one who does wrong continue to do wrong. Let the vile person continue to be vile. Let the one who does right continue to be right. And let the holy person continue to be holy.
Now
Yeah,
that says
don't
mind
stop
your
now.
own business. Mind your own business. I'll translate it for you. Mind your own business. Don't try to control other people. It's literally saying that. Now, that's not me. That's the Bible saying, don't try to control other people. That's in print. That's the biblical text. I don't know why these politicians have such a hard time reading the whole Bible.
Because they don't read these people don't read the
No,
Bible.
they
They
don't.
don't care about the Bible.
Look, you got about 1,300 pages. That's all it is, about 1,300 pages. You
The
can
first
read
reason why I talk about
within 2
Republicans more
weeks.
than Democrats is the simplest one. They're the ones currently in power. Right now, they control all three branches of government, and in less than a year have moved faster and broken more norms, laws, and democratic safeguards than just about every modern presidency combined. They are shredding the Constitution, undermining the rule of law, and eroding the basic trust that holds our institutions together, and many of them are doing it while proclaiming the name of Christ. When Democrats come back into power, if Republicans even allow that to happen legally at this point, then sure, the focus of this channel will shift, and I'll spend more time talking about all the things the Democrats and the broader American left get wrong according to Christian principles. But right now, I'm speaking truth to power.
Yeah, that's just gonna trigger me every time. Oh my God, do I not give a fuck about Christian fucking principles? Also, like, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. The conservatives are right about the Christian principles. Jesus said he did not come to break one jot or tittle of the law, which means, boop, you're stuck with the asshole of the motherfucking Old Testament. And if a motherfucker ever sounded MAGA to me, it is motherfucking Yahweh. But look, all of this shit is anachronism. None of those characters existed in our current political spectrum.
Yahweh or the
We'll talk
highway,
about that. But get the fuck out of here, man.
And the power is currently in the hands of the conservative political establishment, and the Christians who support it because they've convinced themselves their faith requires them to. The second more important reason I focus on conservative Christians is that they are the ones who openly use their faith to justify their politics.
Now this is that right there is the thing people keep ducking and dodging. That is the difference. That part right there. They are the ones who use their faith to justify their politics. They're the ones who say they are doing all of this because they're Christian. And that is why Christianity has to go down with Trump. Because like I said to y'all, we love to reach back into Bible times. We love to nitpick at the Bible. We love to point to all the evil shit that the Bible and God's people did in the Bible, okay? Sorry, all the evil shit God did and God's people did in the Bible. But the reality is this is our chance to say, nope, we are talking about what Christians did to us right now in the year of our Lord 2025. But what he's not realizing is that it's also an indictment of liberal Christianity. It's also an indictment of the entire faith. Because even those of you that were, you know, so righteous, and again, you got your Barney, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. Jesus, okay? Y'all couldn't get shit done. Y'all didn't get it done. Y'all could, first of all, y'all couldn't keep him out of the White House. And most evangelical Christians voted for him. And most of his base is evangelical Christians. So his success is your failure. And even now, with all this Epstein, also, what have liberal Christians been able to do to get it done? Absolutely nothing. When COVID happened, and all we needed y'all to do, Christians, all we needed you to do was nothing. All we needed you to do was stay home, do your little prayers, sing your little songs online. That's all you had to do was nothing. Nope, couldn't have it. Y'all had to be in the churches, doing the mass spreader events. We're tired of y'all dragging us down, being on the wrong side of history, and then every other time we get the other ones that want to show up with the white saviorism and tell us those people aren't doing it right. No, y'all can't stop them, therefore y'all are useless. Liberal Christians, I want y'all to hear this. We say it on this channel, I know you don't hear it other places. Y'all are the Democrats of the church. You are the paid opposition. You are there. You are scripted to lose before you even show up.
Democrats don't do that. You can agree or disagree with their policies, but you will almost never hear them justify their political choices on the basis of their faith. You don't see them invoking Jesus or quoting scripture when they talk about healthcare or the minimum wage, abortion, or any other political...
Listen to Sumami. You know when you're not, you fucking up, you're not listening to Sumami. Barney taught kids to share and be kind and help clean up things together. Christ taught people that if they don't obey and worship, they're going to hell and are evil. That summarizes the difference to me.
They simply don't bring up any religion, Christianity or others, to defend their policy positions. If anything, that's one of the main things conservatives attack them for. They call them too secular, too atheistic, too godless, and in extreme cases, even satanic. But what they can't be credibly accused of is using Christianity as a propaganda tool to advance their political agenda. The same cannot be said of conservative Christians. For most Americans, both inside and outside the church, they have become the face of all Christianity. When people think of Christians now, they think of angry culture warriors with hateful signs, obsessed with abortion, gay marriage, and policing other people's lives. They think of people who genuinely believe Donald Trump was sent by God.
And the funny thing that's so weird to me is I think even some of the ones on the left, if you actually talk to whatever semblance of progressive Christians you would find on the left and ask them privately why they chose a life of public service, a lot of them would use their faith, ironically. Which I know a lot of y'all go, well, isn't that the great thing, Jay? Isn't it so great that they use Christ to go into a career of public service? No. Well,
again, they could be feeding the poor in some impoverished country. That would do it. They could be taking care of the sick.
No, I have an even better idea though. They could do it for people. They could do it for people. They could do it because it's the right thing to do. That's how I was taught politics. I was taught to do politics. I was taught to do public service. But I wasn't taught to do it because of God or because of Jesus. I was taught you do it because that's how you become because you need your neighbors. That's literally what my dad taught me. You always need your neighbors. And yeah, even we might be talking about the city or we might be talking about the state or even the federal government, but what we're really talking about is you're always going to need your neighbors. So you want to be the type of neighbor who can be needed, like that type of talk or talking about the pride of the city and trying to restore like a certain type of city so that the city is proud of the opportunities, or pride in black people and like wanting to do good things in black communities because you care about black issues. Like, these are all the reasons I was taught to be. None of it was ever you do it because Jesus said so. And because when people do that, and he's going to touch on this, so I should let him get there, but he's going to touch on this. When you do it for the Jesus reasons, you only do it as an advertisement for the cult. And that's a problem because, again, the cult's still not true and wants to manipulate people. Matter of fact, the cult is a funnel funneling you directly to those actual harmful people. That's another thing people don't want to talk about. The power structure within the faith is with the bad Christians. So the nice Christians, yeah, y'all could be good and y'all could do the good sales pitch. Y'all are great salespeople for Christianity. But when I actually buy Christianity, what do I get? When I actually purchase Christianity, do I get the Christianity of the lovey-dovey Barney Jesus, or do I buy Christianity and now I gotta change my whole life and dedicate my life to Christ, or else I'm gonna go to hell and stop jerking off and don't do the gays and all of this other stuff, right? That's another part of it. It's like it's again the liberal Christians, the nice ones, they are literally the person that comes up to the school playground, pops out with a load of candy, and it's like, hey kids, I got some good candy for you. I just need you to come back to this white van real quick. Don't worry, kids, the candy's gonna be great. Just follow me this way to this white van. It's gonna be awesome.
Looks like to much of the world right now, because that's what the loudest American Christians have made it look like. This is why the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, "For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside." Our job as believers is to police our own ranks. It was not the world that got baptized and swore that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. It was not the world that took up Christ's challenge to deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow him. We are the ones called to be salt and light so that people see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. We are Christ's ambassadors. People will make judgments.
Sumami said, I'm such a good Christian, not so much I genuinely care about my community. Yeah, exactly. It's frequently done with some level of fanfare. It's never helping to help.
About Jesus based on how we behave. What we do and how people perceive it directly affects the gospel's credibility.
Hey, John.
So yes, there is a higher standard for us. To whom much is given, much will be required, is the rule Jesus gave us in Luke 12. James warns, let not many of you become teachers, for we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. If you claim special knowledge and moral authority, you accept a heavier moral burden.
So
that
hang on
is
a sec.
why I focus on the people who drape their
I want you to hear this part again.
And words are to judge. God judge outside. I think of people who genuinely believe Donald Trump was sent by God. That is what Christianity looks like to much of the world right now, because that's what the loudest American Christians have made it look like. This is why the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, "For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside." Our job as believers is to police our own ranks. It was not the world that got baptized and swore that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. It was not the world that took up Christ's challenge to deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow him. We are the ones called to be salt and light so that people see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven.
All right, there it is. Okay, so couple things. Number one, he said, it is our responsibility to police our ranks. Yes, and you have failed the entire history of your faith. You have failed. You failed to stop the slavery. You failed to stop the genocides. You failed to stop the patriarchy. You failed to stop the violence and I say this to my students because I need y'all to be clear. It's not about you failed to stop them from treating women like property. Women were property. And you failed to stop that. You failed to stop the genocides. You failed to stop segregation. You failed to stop apartheid. Right now, MAGA 2025 Christians, they are losing their shit over a genocide in Nigeria. Why? so it can be used to justify invading a fucking foreign nation. So you can go literally murder those black people. Except wait, most of Nigeria's fucking security administration is actually Christian. The genocide is being committed by a terrorist group, not the motherfucking government. And most of the victims are Muslims. But nobody gives a shit about that. We can say there's a Christian genocide going on. The president of the United States can say, cool, we're going to go into Nigeria, guns blazing, and the Christian right just sits there clapping like seals, and the Christian left does nothing about it. They won't even talk about it. They won't even talk about it. This is the shit I'm sick of. And we're gonna let them use a notion of a Christian genocide that is not happening to go murder black people in Africa. And nobody gives a shit because we have to keep pretending Christianity is cute. And then this is the game. He pulled it up right here. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Christianity is not humanism. They are not doing good things for the good of human beings. They are not serving the community to strengthen the community. They are doing good deeds that their Father may be glorified in heaven, so that the cult may become more powerful. That's the subtext there that I had to throw a little instruction in there, a little educational commentary. It's let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven, that our cult might become more powerful. This is why I don't want them doing the backpack drives. I don't want them doing the soup kitchens. I don't want them doing the community organizing. I did all those things on behalf of the church. I'm not saying this as a passive observer. I'm saying this as someone that used to be my job. And I'm now saying that aspect of my job is very problematic. I did the same exact things working for a secular organization, the Urban League of Essex County. I have absolutely no regrets about my time there. Why? Because we were an urban nonprofit. We did the same type of community tutoring and drives and all of those things, but we were just a community center, a community organization. We did those things because they were right things to do, and we got government funding to do it. I feel bad about taking money from poor people while part of a church and then tying all of those services to the indoctrination and to the proselytizing. Because again, we weren't doing it just to do it. We were doing it to promote the church. My one back friend, you want to get in here before we go back?
No, just go ahead, pocket locker.
Got you.
And light, so that people see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. We are Christ's ambassadors. People will make judgments about Jesus based on how we behave, what we do, and how people perceive it.
I said, give me 1 sec, I'm listening. I gotta grab my coffee.
Credibility. So yes, there is a higher standard for us. To whom much is given, much will be required, is the rule Jesus gave us in Luke 12. James warns, let not many of you become teachers, for we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. If you claim special knowledge and moral authority, you accept a heavier moral burden. That is why I focus on the people who drape their politics in the name of Christ. When people outside the church mess up, it does not reflect on Jesus. When you or I do it, claiming his name, we are compromising the witness of the gospel. For many in the world, you are the only Christ they will ever see. And that's the problem. Today, there is no greater stumbling block to people discovering the gospel than the behavior of so-called Christians. They are shutting the door of salvation in people's faces by making our faith appear small and ugly to people who have never seen Christ, but have only seen the self-righteous hypocrites claiming his name. Jesus said,
Pocket locker must rewind this.
Most non-believers look at the fruit.
You need to go back about 34 seconds, Pocket locker.
Christ they will ever
This
see.
video.
And that's the problem. Today, there is no greater stumbling block to people discovering the gospel than the behavior of so-called Christians. They are shutting the door of salvation in people's faces by making our faith appear small and ugly to people who have never seen Christ, but have only seen the self-righteous
Is
hypocrites.
this the part you're talking about?
Yeah, even you could have gone back a few seconds before you did.
Did he say the woke thing yet?
Claim
Not
special
yet.
knowledge and
Okay.
moral authority, you accept a heavier moral burden. That is why I focus on the people who drape their politics in the name of Christ. When people outside the church mess up, it does not reflect on Jesus. When you or I do it, claiming his name, we are compromising the witness of the gospel. For many
There it
in
is.
the
Yeah,
world,
exactly.
you are the only Christ they will ever see. And that's the problem. Today, there is no greater stumbling block to people discovering the gospel than the behavior of so-called Christians. They are shutting the door.
He's right. He's right. But it's so much deeper than he thinks. See, the Christians use that, but they use it to really say, hey, we're sinners. We got to do better. We're not helping out the PR and marketing department right now. But it really just says that your faith fails to produce moral behavior. It's a far more systematic failure. And also, the other trick that they do here that's very hand wavy is they always make it about now. These unfortunate Christians right now are making us look bad right now. Instead of noticing, no, throughout history, there's never been a period of time since Christianity was formed that you can point to and say like, oh, the Christians were getting it right. Oh, especially just looking at it, just even looking at American history, almost every major social step forward came in opposition to the fundamentalist religious movement. And it was always in this country then against Christianity, right? So I'm not trying to say that like Christianity is like uniquely fucked up amongst all the religions. They're all bullshit. Maybe it is uniquely fucked up, but if so, it's because of the intersection of its power and its politics and its history and all that type of shit. But what I'm saying is you have to do the commentary. So in this country, since this country, its political system is uniquely influenced by, the Christianness of our society, it'd be a different analysis if we were in Saudi Arabia or an Islamic state. That's all I'm saying. But you have to acknowledge that that's a through line, right? That Christianity was used to justify everything. It was used to justify, not having a democracy and remaining loyal to the fucking king. It was used to justify slavery and then, the segregation and the list goes on, right? And so that's another dirty, rotten trick that they do to us to pretend like it's just it's just a bunch of bad apples gone astray in the present moment, rather than acknowledging like, no, this is the history of the church in America.
Door of salvation in people's faces by making our faith appear small and ugly to people who have never seen Christ, but have only seen the self-righteous hypocrites claiming his name. Jesus said, "You will know a tree by its fruit." Most non-believers look at the fruit of American Christianity and they are rightfully appalled.
Yep. You hit the nail right on the head, sir. You hit the nail right on the head, sir. We look at the behavior of the Christians and we're absolutely appalled. You said all the things.
In John 13, Jesus says the world will know we are his disciples by our love, not our slogans, not our votes, not our political candidates.
Okay, but I can hit you with this one. And see, this is why Bible wars are useless. I hate the Bible. You know what? When you want the Bible wars, you go to my one black friend because you could tell he gets into the Bible. I hate that book. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. What's easy for so many believers to say is, he didn't say love everybody. He said your love of one another. In other words, your love of fellow Christians, your love
You
of fellow
tolerate each other.
believers. And then
Hmm.
even when we look at like the 10 commandments, right? When it says, don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't steal your neighbor's goods, all that stuff. Neighbor, most people will
Meant
tell you
fellow Hebrew.
it was fellow Hebrew.
If
So
you're fellow
again,
Hebrew.
the liberal myth making is to say, no, the God told us to love everybody. No, the more accurate interpretation is
You
not,
love
that's actually not what he said.
you love your in group.
And again,
Their
this
in
could
group.
even be seen as the same thing, is love
It
your
is the
in
same
group.
thing.
It is the
It is
same
the same.
thing.
Now let me add something to this. Here's where there is a difference, but not to some people it'll be major. So as anyone who's read the New Testament will understand, Jesus preached not only to the Hebrews, but he sort of welcomed in the marginalized people like the tax collectors and the prostitutes. So Christianity, early Christianity in his time, if he existed, was sort of a hodgepodge of people that were sort of on the fringes of society that were welcome in to hear his message and be a part of his message and repent and be baptized and become Christians. So even this person over here who was a prostitute, you're not supposed to judge her because she was a prostitute. She's a Christian now. So you have to love her as if she was essentially as if she was without sin since she became baptized, right? Anything
Right.
before that didn't matter. Why? She is washed clean in the blood of Jesus. That's how it's supposed to work, right? The other adherents to the faith have to make that adjustment in their own minds and accept this person who, if they weren't a client, probably would have steered clear of, um, accept her or him for who they are in Christ. So that's the way that's supposed to work. And this love one another right here is right in alignment with that. That's what it's asking. That's how everyone, right? Everyone, me as an outsider, outsiders that are contemporary with this being written down, will get it. That person must be a Christian. Look how delightful they are treating this other person over here. We
All right,
could
we looked
hope,
at
Pocket Locker, we could hope that as a group, most Christians don't interpret it that way, that they mean love one another as in people, all people, all people, all places, regardless of their religious affiliation. Originally, there's no way it didn't mean what we just discussed, that it's
no,
the
yeah,
in
that's what
group.
I'm saying. Like
Yeah, it's the in group.
I will totally concede that most of them, I would say, probably mean love everybody. But it's really important to understand that, like you said, that's not what it originally meant.
It is not what it originally
And
meant.
people
No.
understand what I'm saying, that is liberal myth making, right? Because it's allowing liberals to come in and say the Bible says something the Bible doesn't say, so that they can shame their opponents, right? So that they can say, look at those people on the right being unchristian, when actually the people on the right are far closer to the actual meaning of the original scripture, which is why it's liberal myth making. That's why I'm sick of this shit. That's why I'm trying to point all this out to people, to say, I know the liberals sound nice, but they're full of shit. Christianity's not the solution, and they're never going to win that
It's
Bible
not.
war. All right, so we watched this on
Not
another.
especially not with me, but for different reasons, Pocket Locker.
Yeah, for sure,
But
for
you could,
sure.
but you could come and lay your burdens down right in front of me. I got you. Come on.
So we looked at this on another stream, but I'm gonna replay it because it was relevant to what you were just bringing up. So I'll let her play this and we'll chat.
As someone who grew up in white Christian nationalism, understand that they will continue to defend the type of men found on the Epstein files, provided those men say that they are Christians and they are conservative, and they've been trained to do it their whole life. And I'm going to do an 8-minute video breaking this down on Patreon tonight, but I'm going to summarize it here. They were taught this by King David. because King David was taught as this hero of the faith, this Old Testament hero. He's in the lineage of Jesus. He's the favorite of the Old Testament leaders. He's also a rapist and a murderer, but was still considered in the Bible to be a man after God's own heart. That's why when you confront Christians about Trump's behavior, Trump's affiliation with Epstein, or other spiritual leaders who have misconduct with teenage girls, for instance, they will repeatedly say, well, God uses imperfect vessels. Well, God forgave David for his sin with Bathsheba. What was the sin with Bathsheba? They teach it in church that David committed adultery with Bathsheba and then later killed her husband to cover up his indiscretion. That's not what happened. Bathsheba was raped, because when David was walking on the roof of his palace when he should have been at war with his soldiers, he sees her bathing in her courtyard, which is where people bathed, sent soldiers to go get her, drag her to the palace, and forced himself on her, because you can't say no to the person who can chop your head off if you try to refuse. It's also ignorance about what sexual ethic was in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, only one person had sexual agency, and it was a man, and a sexual agent committed a sexual act to an object. The object's consent did not matter or not, which is why those same-sex verses in the Old Testament are referring to abuse, because they were taking away the agency of a man. And that's why those Old Testament verses do not include same-sex intercourse between women, because as sexual objects, their consent did not matter, nor did it disrupt the social hierarchy. So what David actually did was he kidnapped and raped a woman, and then he murdered her husband. But in the Bible, the sin is not against Bathsheba. And we see the prophet Nathan come to David to confront him. He does not confront him for what he did to Bathsheba, his sin against her. He confronts him using this parable of a ewe lamb stolen from a poor man, that the sin was stealing another man's property. So what they've done in the church is they have allowed the story of David and Bathsheba to say that a man, no matter how grievous his sin, can still be righteous in the eyes of God, and a woman, no matter her victimization, is still culpable to the crime. And they have now used that to justify, well, she was 15, she knew better, even though the pastor was 55. They use it to justify people like Trump and whoever serves their gains, because ultimately it's about control in the sexual ethic of the Old Testament. And it's also about being able to navigate for power under the guise of spirituality by using these chapters. The church later emphasized this misogyny by including books in the Bible that we knew were pseudepigraphal, meaning they were written under a false name. They knew it then, they knew it now, things like 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, but they included it because of its subjugation of women, because it was about power and the divinity of men to be able to be vessels of God and of power regardless of their sin.
That sister was just murdering everything. That was just such a bloody slaughter and just laying it out. I was like, I'm not going to dare pause. I'm not going to dare hit the pause button on her. But look,
you should mention her name. I forget her name. She pops up on Instagram for me a lot.
It's I don't want to mispronounce it. Monty. That's it. Monty Mater.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, she's absolutely great. So there's a bunch of stuff there. So one, I gotta say this. This is why this liberal myth making with Christianity is so dangerous, because these people play around, but they know they're enabling the hardcore conservative movement. Listen, this shit will always be conservative. I don't know who the fuck. I don't know what people think is going on. You ain't never gonna make Christianity a left leaning like that. That's just it's such a crazy delusion. But hear me out. You got to understand that these people use their biblical motivation for sinister things. And like we've been trying to put it together, like what she was saying, you gotta put things together. You gotta put together them constantly trying to legalize child marriage. You gotta put together them taking K-12 out of the Department of Education, putting it into the Department of Labor, and then wanting to lower the minimum age at which you can go to work. Child labor laws. Then you got to put that together with them lowering the age at which you can be tried criminally as an adult. And then put that together with them lowering the age of consent. Every single time people try to oppose child marriage or not lowering the age of consent, conservatives get up in arms about what? Their religious freedom. So they're telling you, I believe it is biblical for me as a man to marry a child. And so when you go around like normalizing the love bomb Christianity, knowing good and goddamn well what Christians are going to do if they really get put in power to do what they want to do. Like, okay, go ahead, play that. Go ahead, play that game. Go ahead, play that game. But when that becomes the thing that's brought to us, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem, and it's like it's a mess. It's a mess. I want to get back to what we were watching, but I was like, I thought that was really good because like what you were saying, it's like it's all sin to them, right? And it's built in to just say, oh, he's a sinner or God used an imperfect vessel. They have been making that argument with Trump the entire time. They started making that argument with Trump.
Entire time.
Yeah, when he did the grab him by the pussy thing, they started saying that.
All right, let me. This is 1 Corinthians 5. The guy used something from 1 Corinthians 5:22 earlier. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and of a kind that even pagans do not tolerate. A man is sleeping with his father's wife, and you are proud. Shouldn't you rather have gone into mourning and have put out of your fellowship the man who has been doing this? And I think this guy did an immoral thing, right? Openly. Shouldn't you have put him out? It says. It also says you are proud. Think of this. Think of this. By the way, this is freely available in Bibles throughout the world. This is what I'm saying to you. For my part, even though I am not physically present, I am with you in present. I am with you in spirit, as one who is present with you in this way. I have already passed judgment in the name of our Lord Jesus on the one who has been doing this. So when you are assembled, and I am with you in spirit, and the power of our Lord Jesus is present, hand this man over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so that his spirit may be saved on the day of the Lord. Okay. He's telling you, this is, I think this is Paul, telling you, you shouldn't have anything to do with this immoral man. You shouldn't be proud of him. You shouldn't be boasting about him. But people do. I would say this applies to people who want to be with underage children, people who are genuinely immoral in their actions, they're cheaters and so on and so on. You still got to deal with Revelation 22, where it says, let those people be that way still. But there's a difference between letting them be and openly working to create more of them, openly working to create even more suffering. That is wrong. That is utterly wrong, to create suffering on a mass scale. Christians, you have my sympathy because it's freaking hard. Again, I've said on Hot Program, but I've not called Frank Turk's program and say, hey, why don't you spend a year preaching against pastors and youth pastors raping children? Lay off us atheists for a while. Let us be, like Revelation says, and just focus on that. Clean up your own house.
Because they know it and they don't think it's wrong. They're with it. They honestly think the laws are wrong. They think the laws are woke. They think
got
if they
writing the checks.
No, they think, let's be clear about this. They think if we lived in a truly biblical society, that would be okay. And so they're trying to bring about the true biblical society where that is okay. That's why they don't preach about it. Let's be very clear. That's why they don't preach about it.
The same Bible says, "Come out and be separate."
Wait, let's add. Let me add one more thing. Let me add one more thing. They're right. They are correct. In a biblical society, those things were not wrong. Right? In a biblical society, those things were okay. And if
I
we
would
brought
argue
about a
we're a
biblical
lot more sophisticated about mental health these
yeah, but if
days.
we brought about a biblical society, those things would be okay again. And that's the game people want to keep playing. In 2025, y'all want to keep playing around while these people are literally trying to bring back a biblical society so they can marry children. And notice how even in Monty's clip, it touched on it, right? It touched on the idea of it wasn't about her consent. It was about she was property, and the sin was against the other man. Now, this is why I told my students this, because again, we euphemize this. We say, oh, in the biblical times, people were treated like property. But see, people don't understand this because it's such a norm in our society. So I'm doing my project on infanticide. So I try to do this thing I started this year where, since my students have to do a project, I do a project too. That way I can model that I'm still learning and also give them example work to follow. And so my project is on infanticide. And infanticide is when you kill your own child, typically within the first year. So one of the things that comes up there, and I knew this from, when I was in grad school, is personhood is something that is actually socially constructed. And there is cultural variation in when you are actually fully considered what you might call something, I'm using our language, but something approximating a unique individual, right? And you can think of it largely as being driven by the environment and the cultural adaptations to the environment. So one predictor is high infant mortality rate. So in societies where there's higher infant mortality, meaning a lot of babies die, a society is more likely to delay personhood. And one of the examples of that is, think about, when does a baby get a name, right? In a lot of societies with really high infant mortality, it might be after a few years. And the idea is that, like, there's a lot of babies don't make it. Some, functional theorists suggest that this is incredibly painful, obviously, to deal with as a society. So one of the ways they try to minimize that is, like, you're kind of just generic baby until you reach a certain age, and then we give you a name, right? So, but think about our society. Our infant mortality is so fucking low. We give babies, we do gender reveal parties, and then we give babies names like 3 months into the pregnancy or whatever. Like, oh, I just found out I'm pregnant. Let's start picking out baby names, right? That shows you, like,
My wife and I did that.
So we kind of take it for
My
granted.
wife did that.
So we kind of take it for granted, but there's actually a lot of variation in that. My point is to say, that's one example of how personhood is actually socially constructed. And in our society, we tend to take it for granted, but we shouldn't. And the same way personhood is socially constructed over the lifetime of an individual. When do you get a name? Whose names do you get? How much are you considered? Even our personhood is still kind of negotiated. In other words, you have higher personhood the older you get, right? When you're a baby, you're largely considered the offspring of your parent. Like right now, to us, your child is my one black friend's baby, because she hasn't developed enough to have a unique identity really aside from that. Even though she's got her own name and we recognize she's a special little something, she's still like generically a baby, right? But as she gets into her teen years and then leaves and becomes an adult, you know what I'm saying? She's going to be her first, and then your role as a parent will kind of fade more into the background, right? So it's a sliding scale, right? So the same thing happens over history, right? So for instance, black people at the founding of this country were also not considered persons. We were property, right? And so we treat it like a euphemism. We say, oh, black people were treated like property. No, we weren't treated like property. Being treated like property would be some sort of like role play where like we fantasize, you know, hey, you put me on the selling block at the store on Main Street and all, and then somebody can come up and they could pretend to buy me. That's like, that would be treating like property. We were property. We were harvested from our land, right?
And bread.
And bread, and yeah, and then bread and bought and sold and inherited, right? Because we were property. We were not considered people, right? So our personhood had to be negotiated over time. And to be honest, we are still trying to negotiate for equal personhood, right? We've achieved more personhood than we had when we were slaves, but we still don't have the same personhood as white people, right? So that's the same thing for women. Like, women were property. So it's important that people like realize that. And I'm glad that like she talked about that with Bathsheba, because it's another thing that we have to recognize as part of this worldview. Like, we keep saying like, oh, well, the Bible treats women like property, and we treat it like, oh, that's because in Bible times they had these really fucked up views. It's like, well, yeah, but that's now encapsulated in the book. And therefore it's in the doctrine and in the dogma. And if we bring about a biblical world, that's going to be one where, again, where that personhood for women and marginalized people is going to be sliding in the wrong direction. And they're doing the same thing even with their parental rights movement. What is their parental rights movement all about? A lot of times it's about, I then as a parent get to treat this child again like property and decide, well, maybe I don't want it to learn certain things. Maybe I don't want it exposed to certain things. Maybe certain public and social protections that apply to most children shouldn't apply to my child because of my parental rights, right? So we gotta see the big picture. And all I'm saying is that biblical worldview, y'all, ain't nothing to mess with. And that's why I think this liberal myth making is so dangerous. Let's roll, because he's got a bunch to say, and so have we, apparently.
Disciples by our love, not our slogans, not our votes, not our political candidates, but by our love. What are we known for instead? Not love, not mercy, not compassion, but hate, judgment, condemnation, cruelty, and worst of all, hypocrisy, judging the sins of others while ignoring our own. I see it in my comments all the time. You progressives don't preach repentance. You let people keep sinning. But God did not call you to police the sins of the world. Paul already told us that God judges those outside the church. Our job is to love people. Full stop. Jesus sums up the whole law as love God and love your neighbor. Paul says the entire law is fulfilled in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Over and over again, the emphasis is the same. Care for the poor.
Again, just quick highlights, gang. I'm going to try to keep them rolling, but more liberal myth making. My job as a Christian is simple. It's just to love God and love my neighbors. Again, more liberal myth making. You're lying. What are you asking me for? What are you asking me for? First off, he said you should be able to provide a defense for your faith. So maybe why not focus on that part? Why not focus on that part? Why not focus on the part where he tells you to go make disciples of nations? Because I could tell you the missionaries and all of them people, they didn't skip that part. But more importantly, again, the ask is for me to dedicate my life to Christ. And ultimately, if I don't dedicate my life to Christ, I'm going to end up burning in hell. So again, this is why I can't stand this shit. Be so for real. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to talk to me about these things, I'm going to tell you it's 2020, 25. Be so for real. Bro, I used to be a Christian. That's what I'm telling you. It's our superpower, because I can say I used to be a Christian. I know what you're really asking. You're asking me to dedicate my life to Christ, and if I don't, I'm going to go to hell. So don't come at me with I'm just a Christian, and my job is just to love. I love. It's that Barney shit, y'all.
Marginalized, the oppressed, the ones at the bottom. This is what God cares about. And this goes to the core of why I'm harder on the right than the left. I simply cannot understand how you can read the Gospels, hear about Jesus healing the sick, feeding the hungry, warning against pride, arrogance, and idolatry, preaching that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and then turn around and get angry that your tax money feeds the hungry. How do you claim to follow a man who said,
Thanks,
whatever
John.
you do for the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do for me, and then demand that people poor enough to need welfare or food stamps prove they're drug-free before you'll allow them to eat?
So also Christians, I got to tell you, Christians on the right, Christians on the left, I'm not even listening to anything y'all have to say until I see trans people all the way thriving. Because by my calculations right now, I put my stuff into my low calculations. They are amongst the least of these. You know what I'm saying? I'm for all the people, gang. I'm for all the people. And I think the intersectionality of marginalization basically means most of us are fucked most of the time. And especially being black, I could tell you, being black people, we are all the way at the bottom of the social hierarchy at all times. But like I said, there's a lot of us. Trans people have this unique intersection of they're just getting all the smoke, all the persecution, but there's really not that many of them. Like I said, trans people have broken the record for number of legislative bills per individual in the population. It is record shattering. The entire legal system is based on racism and oppressing black people, right? But there's a lot of fucking black people. Depending on where you ask, 11 to 17% of the population, depends on who you ask, how you ask, and where you ask, right? So there's a lot of laws, right? But there's a lot of people. So the per capita is not too crazy, right? But for trans people, like I said, there are states where there's probably 10 anti-trans in sports bills, but like 3 trans athletes. Right. So for each trans athlete in that state, they have 3.3 bills per person. Imagine having 3 whole pieces of legislation with your name on it just for you. Okay. So
And without being a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
To get your tax rate.
Without being a billionaire.
Jeffrey Epstein literally had part of a bill written just for him.
Huge caveat, without being a billionaire, right? So to me, that's gotta make you at least part of the least of these. You gotta at least be part of the least of these when your persecution is just off the charts, record setting, right? So Christians, that's your new litmus test. That's your new litmus test. I will tell how Christians are being by how well trans people are doing. Yep, we're gonna put it on you like that. Yep, you show us your witness. Please come humble us with your good deeds. So when I see trans people, they just thriving, they ain't unemployed, they all got housing, they're all using whatever restroom they feel the most comfortable in. They are not just playing sports, they are winning at sports, and all the Christians are celebrating their sports endeavors. Oh my goodness, the Christians just gonna be standing up, giving standing ovations when trans women are just dunking all over cis women in the NBA. It's gonna be amazing. They're gonna have all the trans people jerseys on, and I'm gonna be like, damn, these Christians are awesome. Christians, y'all are really just blowing me away with your good deeds. And then I'll go full Alex O'Connor. I'll be like, maybe Christianity is more plausible than I thought. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna say that shit is plausible, but I would be impressed. So that's the new litmus test, Christians. Have at it. Have fun with that one.
How do you worship a savior who healed without
Can you pause it real quick?
Yeah.
Can you pause real quick? I am still unsatisfied with, you said it's plausible. I'm still not satisfied with how people say Jesus was real. I know there are these stories.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
He didn't walk on water like
what do you say about the James, the brother of Jesus?
Sure. I'm glad you brought this up. So I have been toying with the idea, I'm too busy right now, of doing a series on how a writer, someone who's actually creative, could interpret what they see in the Bible. There's a part of the Bible that talks about people returning from Babylon. Israelite men married women in Babylon and had these mixed kids. And ultimately, these kids and the spouses were to be put to death. Now, if you're someone who's clever, you could write that they would be put to death and then say they were put to death and not harm a single hair on anyone's head. Because those later who would challenge the validity, whether or not those descendants of those people are part of Israel, can't do it because they were all killed. Right? The text says they were all killed.
Wiped out.
So they were wiped out. So even though it wasn't actually done, the holy books, the writings of the prophet, it says they were. So you either believe it or you don't. And who are you not to believe it? This is history now. It's been said. All those descendants are still walking around perfectly fine without harming a single person. You do it in the literature and you don't have to harm a person. That is the kindest way to go about it, in a sense. If you still have to vilify the fact that these people fell in love with someone and then had a family with them, that's sort of the clever way of just hand waving it away from history. It happened. Those people paid a terrible price. We've moved on. So these people who look a little different, you're not supposed to persecute them at all, because they clearly aren't the descendants of those people, because those people were wiped out.
So you think James
Anyway,
is just there to
I can.
construct the history?
So when we watch the Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark Griswold is the father. Are his kids real in the story?
I don't know the story.
Okay, well, what's your favorite movie that's not based on a actual human being?
I don't know. Home Alone, maybe.
Okay,
I'm thinking the holidays. I get
okay,
you
so
maybe thinking Christmas movies.
sure, Home Alone. Is that kid like a real kid that we know of for sure?
No, it's just
Is what happened to him, even if it was a kid, is what happened to him every scene based on true events?
no.
Or no, not based on true events, a retelling of true events with no additional commentary, with no additional comedic effect or anything like that. Did it happen just as we saw it on screen, only with actors portraying real events?
No, of course not. So you think that's the same thing with James?
The best way for me to reassure you that I'm not conning you is to give the fictional character I made up a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't ever think of it. Think of it. It's I have said, in a way, it's the perfect con. Because if I'm walking around the Levant giving these teachings saying Jesus did this, Jesus did that, and you never see Jesus, but I march out his brother, well, shoot, the guy has a brother. Fake people don't have a real brother. His brother, the guy that's playing his brother, never had to even know that there was a Jesus. He's going to say what I told him to and probably make up things on the spot to make Jesus even more real. Then we kind of sit down and talk and reiterate those things, and we work them into the original script. And then when we go to the next place, we talk about it again. We talk about these miracles that Jesus did that none of these people will ever see in front of us, right? We can talk about how our brethren healed the sick, blah, 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 blah. And what happens is the stories make it from community to community, eventually by the people who heard them retelling them, not just a group of 12 or so guys walking around saying the same things over and over and over, like Benny Hinn, right? The Benny Hinn Road Show. How many people, how many thousands of people show up to one of those things, walk out with stronger faith than when they went in, and not a single person is healed? It
It's a
sure looked
miracle.
good. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Now, we know it's psychology. There's the miracle
Right.
that the human mind never needed much evidence to embrace it, to fully embrace it. I shared.
Okay, but remember we
Oh,
talked earlier about how
go
scary
ahead.
they are to me?
Sure.
But that's why, right? Think about think about what I talked about, right? Like they get so emotionally dependent on this thing. They need to believe it so desperately that they'll do all this cruel stuff to other people, and they never needed any evidence at all to get there. Right? Like that's the
Well,
totally scary. I mean, think about I talked about the prison experiment, right? At
yes, you
least
did.
in the prison experiment, they were given material indicators of their authority. Right? They were, hey, you are the guards. Here are the uniforms, and you get to, exercise your power over. You make sure that they eat on schedule and do the, you know what I mean? Like it's your, you know what I mean? They're given real status and authority. This religion shit is like you could just give it to them in their heads and they'll take it and run with it. Like
Let me let
it's
me let me try
scary.
to find this. Do you, okay, let's go back up. Um, this is again First Corinthians 5, verse 3. For my part, even though I am not physically present, I am with you in spirit. Think about that. I'm with you in spirit. So one can say, he goes on to say, so when you are assembled and I am with you in spirit and the power of Lord Jesus is present, what are our indicators for this? How do we know that Paul is with us in spirit? How do we know that the power of Jesus is present? How do
Two
we
or
know
three are
that?
gathered. That's it.
Well, well, I'm only going to repeat what other people have said when I say, if it's true that Jesus is present when, two or more Christians are together or three or more are gathered, whatever, um, we should be able to tell, right? There should be a quantifiable difference. We should be able to measure something. If two or more Christians agree on the same thing, it is so, right? Then if Christians prayed for world peace, we should have it right now. We should be surrounded by a better world than what we have. If it were true, Mark 16 through 19, that Christians could lay hands on people and heal them. Forget about drinking deadly
But see, I
poison to
think
take
there's
up
a
serpents.
good,
Don't
but
do
they have a
dangerous
good
things.
defense to this. They have a good
Th-
defense to this.
I don't think they do, but go, by all means, what is that defense?
That's not what they pray for. They're
Wah,
praying for their football
wah.
teams and they're praying for their stock investments. Maybe
Well,
sometimes if they have a sick parent or something like that,
then
they
why don't
throw a
we see more
couple.
tie games? Why don't we see more tie games? If it, it's God got a it's God got his clicker up there.
Hey,
All
Beck.
right. There's one praying for the Colts. These another guy praying for the Lions over here. Oh look, there's a grandmother with her grandchildren in the living room. They're praying for the Colts. I got that click off 4 times over here. And then he just it's democratic. It's by a vote. Okay, well by votes, and I want to do what I can for people, but I can't contradict myself. I got Colts fans over here winning. They got 32 more prayers than Detroit Lions fans. The Colts win.
All
Now
right.
by how much?
All right, hang on. Kyle said for the question of the day, which is like, why are liberals still trying to defend Christianity? I forget how I worded it. Kyle said several different reasons. However, I theorize that they are trying to reconcile or save their once held faith with the foundation of control, the preservation strategy, avoid conflict. Yeah, I think a lot of it really is the last thing you. I mean, I agree with all of this, but I think particularly the last thing you said about avoiding conflict. I think there's a secret thing that people don't want to talk about, which is actually that religious people in general, but in our society, mostly Christians, they actually behave really badly. They behave really badly, really antisocial anytime their religion is challenged. And people know this and they just want to avoid it because they don't want to deal with them being ostracized or them flipping out or them losing their shit or acting all
Well,
weird.
I wanna jump in on this. Christianity even gets into the weeds in some places as to how a Christian is to conduct themselves, down to dietary concerns about, should I eat something if it makes my brother in Christ struggle? Now think of that. Should I eat something? if it causes another Christian to struggle. So there are those times where, to an extreme measure, they're looking to accommodate each other within the faith. I think that's often, depending on what it is, right? As long as they're not defending somebody going out there and being wretched to other people, being terrible and cruel and such like that. If it's just someone trying to be righteous and not eat a BLT, but the smell of bacon is absolutely wonderful, and they're gonna order a BLT if I order one, maybe I can have one when they're not around and still get my desired sandwich, and that person hold to whatever portion of the dietary laws they've decided to adhere to, even though they were told they didn't have to adhere to it anymore in the New Testament. It could be that way. So there always seems to be a spectrum on such matters. There are other things about lust that maybe they're not as cut and dry as what to eat and what not to eat. For some people, like women, how they dress, that's addressed in the New Testament as well. Like women aren't supposed to have braided hair or earrings, that sort of thing, because it could make an angel fall in love with them. Does angel mean like an angel that is a divinity, or a messenger that is visiting from another congregation or something?
All right, let's roll a tape because we're getting way off in the biblical interpretation.
Support policies or politicians that deny healthcare to children with cancer and bankrupt families just for getting sick. How do you say you believe in a God who commands you to love the stranger and the foreigner and not oppress them, yet cheer for politicians who cage migrants, demonize foreigners, and scapegoat the desperate? How do you claim to serve the Lord who washed his disciples' feet while pledging your loyalty to a billionaire who lives in a golden tower and brags about never needing forgiveness? It's not just that these policies are morally perverse for anyone to hold, although they are, but for followers of Christ, it's something far worse. It's blasphemy to claim the name of Christ while living in a way that denies everything he stood for.
All right. This is another thing that I have to get people to understand, part of this liberal myth making. What he just said is incredibly important. When I talk about the problem of having far-right Christofascists on your right, and then the fact that the people on your left are trying to be true Christians. They're trying to be more Christian than the people on the right. This is the problem. Because then again, right, everything is not about being good humans and making the world a better place. It's about everyone seeing your good deeds so that you can promote your cult. I can't imagine a more vain, insincere thing. Imagine if people were honest. Imagine if somebody walked up to a homeless person, handed them $10, waited, turned and took a picture and said, hang on, I don't really want to give you this $10. I want to make sure people see my good deed so that I can promote my organization, right? Like
I literally sent Pocket Locker a video of me giving money to a Salvation Army bell ringer because he mentioned Hot Program.
Oh, he did. That's hilarious.
I did. Didn't you see it?
No, I'm sorry. I've been tied up.
That's what that was for. It cost me $5, Pocket Locker. $5.
So
if you'd like to contribute $5 to restore my One Black Friends $5 fund, program, please do so. I don't know if YouTube ever is going to send us a check because we haven't raised enough money for them to do so, but you can do so by super chatting below.
All right. So then the problem, right? So they're doing all these things for the wrong reason. And then the problem is now, instead of like realizing that all of this stuff is fucked up, it's blasphemy. When the problem is spiritual and religious, the solution is spiritual and religious. And it's a problem that, like, no, dude, I want to talk about how the system sucks. I want to talk about how it's fucked up. And again, we need to keep it in strictly human terms. No, it's blasphemy. So again, the problem to the left isn't really that, immigrants are being black bagged and shipped to alligator entrenchment camps or whatever we're doing these days, or the government turns out QAnon was right and the government is actually covering up for pedophiles. Yeah, it turns out our health insurance premiums about to do something between double and quadruple or whatever the hell it's going to be. It's okay that we can't afford housing and our job market's all fucked. Like because again, gang, those aren't the real problems. The real problems is that all of these things are a poor witness. They're a poor witness, and the people who are doing all the bad stuff, they're blaspheming the name of the Lord. This is why I'm telling you, I'm sick of being caught in the middle of a Bible war.
Is to take the Lord's name in vain. These are the people Jesus was talking about when he said, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say?" They'll put the 10 Commandments on the wall in a school, but ignore the very first one, to obey the Lord your God and set no other gods before him. But they built a new idol for themselves, and that idol is self-righteousness. That's what passes for Christianity on the right today. That's what their so-called Christian values amount to. Their whole philosophy boils down to abortion and gay marriage, basically. Two issues that they treat like the sum total of their faith, while turning a blind eye to everything else Jesus ever taught. They've reduced the gospel to a list of sins they don't personally struggle with, or won't admit they struggle with. They've traded humility for moral superiority.
Hillwood said Christianity is Mr. Beast.
How does that make sense?
Oh, it's so
Can you explain
good.
this? How does that make
Because
sense?
Mr. Beast like does all these streams and he's known for giving away all this money and being super charitable. Behind the scenes is like super corrupt and
Oh, is he?
exploitative and abusive and has been caught in all sorts of controversy. And of course, he only does these things because it's his fucking brand and it's made him, goo gobs of fucking money. So yeah, and just it's such a perfect analogy. And he also now fancies himself like the future of political power, and yeah, it's a whole mess. But for those who know, for those in the deep in the internet culture, that's a legendary comment, Hillwood. It's
mercy
really
for
good.
judgment and love for outrage. And they relish it. They take pleasure in imagining the people they despise being punished, condemned, and cast out. They want to use government power not as an instrument of God's mercy, but as an instrument of his wrath. They want to rule in God's name, not serve in it. And that's why they can look at a man like Donald Trump, a man who embodies pride, greed, cruelty, deceit, everything the Bible and Jesus tells us not to be. And somehow they convince themselves that he is still God's chosen vessel. Somehow. That's not faith. That's idolatry.
I turned off the emote protection for a little bit. We'll see how it goes. We used to have that because there was a lot of spammy links back in the StreamYard days.
The worship of power dressed up in the language of religion. And Jesus would be rightfully appalled. These are the people he warned about when he said, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." And how could that not be the case? Just consider what and who was close to Jesus' heart: concern for the poor, compassion for the oppressed, mercy for the outcast and the marginalized. That was literally his entire life and ministry on earth. He went to the people everyone else looked down on, the excluded, the shamed, the forgotten, many of them trapped in poverty or oppression for generations. Those were the people.
All right, I'm gonna rewind it because I know y'all know this shit.
And where's the Middle Eastern version of
and you've
Jesus?
heard it.
Does he have any pictures of that guy?
Does he have any pictures of that guy?
Pictures
No,
of the
of course not.
Middle Eastern
No,
Jesus with the
no,
fuzzy hair.
No. Black Christians are white supremacists. Black Christians love white Jesus. They have no idea that they just brought hook, line, and sinker the whitewashing of God. But I want y'all to hear this again because this is the myth. I need y'all to hear the myth because after he's done, we're going to deconstruct the myth.
Be the case. Just consider what and who was close to Jesus' heart: concern for the poor, compassion for the oppressed, mercy for the outcast and the marginalized. That was literally his entire life and ministry on earth. He went to the people everyone else looked down on, the excluded, the shamed, the forgotten, many of them trapped in poverty or oppression for generations. Those were the people he sought out. There's a reason why his most famous sermon begins with, "Blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for
Notice even this quote, blessed are the poor in spirit. We'll come back to that.
righteousness." God is not neutral in the struggle between the strong and the weak. He actively chooses the side of the marginalized and the oppressed. In other words, God is woke, and so is Jesus.
I'm gonna have to hear y'all hear this one more
It
time.
must have been what, a year and a half ago we did a program, the Jesus is woke.
Yeah.
Side of the marginalized
Still
and the
relevant.
oppressed. In other words, God is woke, and so is Jesus.
All right, we're gonna have to hit it one more time. I just need to make sure everybody's heard it in the back.
Side of the marginalized and the oppressed. In other words, God is woke, and so is Jesus. This
All right, gang.
No,
I'm
wait,
sick.
wait, Pocket Locker. I have to exercise what little sense of humor I have. We have all heard it said that if you go woke, you go broke. Every week at churches all over the world, they ask for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. All right. So, oh goodness. Oh, I had to restart my browser. Oh, I forgot about that. All right, here we go. So look, y'all, I had to just come straight to ChatGPT because I wasn't even playing. I didn't have time. I'm not doing Bible studies. But look, I just said, look, help me articulate, quote unquote, Jesus was not woke. I get really tired of this argument. All right, so here we go. One, historical anachronism. Jesus was not woke because no one in the first century was woke. That concept didn't exist. If someone says Jesus was woke, they're projecting 21st century American political categories onto a first century apocalyptic Jewish preacher under Roman occupation. It's just the same as saying Julius Caesar was a libertarian, Socrates was a socialist, or Moses was a Republican. None of these ideologies existed. It's a category mistake. More importantly, here we go. Jesus was apocalyptic, not progressive. Apocalyptic, not progressive. Jesus preached the imminent end of the world, not systemic reform. His worldview was apocalyptic. The kingdom of God was coming any day. Social hierarchies would be reversed by divine intervention. Roman oppression would end not through policy, but through God's judgment. That is not a quote unquote woke framework. That's ancient apocalypticism. Jesus accepted the moral framework of his time. If we actually read the Gospels, something Christians don't bother to do, Jesus did not challenge many moral norms that modern progressives consider essential. He never condemned slavery. He upholds Torah law, often more strictly. He affirms patriarchal family structures. He discourages divorce. He believes in demons and exorcism. He accepts inequality as something God will fix later, not humans now. You don't get to call someone woke when they accept and reinforce multiple ancient norms modern progressives reject. Jesus was often harsh, judgmental, and apocalyptic. He literally says, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Anyone who does not hate father and mother cannot follow me. Cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. Depart from me into everlasting fire. That's not the tone of a modern social justice movement. That is end-time sectarian rhetoric. Jesus focused on spiritual poverty, not material activism. People project modern anti-poverty politics onto him, but Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. He says, you will always have the poor with you. He says, do not store up treasures on earth. And he says, sell everything and follow me, which is individual asceticism, not policy. Jesus didn't push wealth redistribution, political activism, or systemic economic reform. He pushed radical personal holiness because the end was near. 6, if Jesus was quote unquote woke, then Christians haven't been. This is how the Jesus was woke myth line usually works. My religion is perfect, everyone else got it wrong. But historically, Christianity supported slavery for 1800 years. You should add that Christians still make a practice of defending
Jesus
slavery
supported
on the
slavery.
internet. Jesus supported
Jesus
slavery.
supported slavery.
Right.
Come on.
Churches enforced patriarchy. So did Jesus. Churches justified colonialism. Could argue there that it was justified as well because Jesus was in a colony and basically Jesus said, render unto Caesar what was Caesar's, not let's kill Caesar. Churches excluded LGBTQ people and churches defended segregation. So if Jesus were truly woke, Christian tradition would reflect that. It doesn't. And then quote unquote woke Jesus is just a rhetorical weapon. The whole argument has nothing to do with history. It's political branding. Conservatives say Jesus was anti-woke. Liberals say Jesus was woke. Both are selling a version of Jesus aligned with their politics. The historically accurate version, a first century Jewish apocalyptic preacher with no resemblance to modern political categories. So I appreciate that. It's really, all of these things are things that as non-believers, particularly ex-Christians, most of you know and are familiar with, but it's just a brief, meaningful summary to just, because I just get so sick of that point. And you heard him say it explicitly, therefore we can counter it explicitly. Jesus was not woke, and God, don't even get me started on Yahweh, right? That's how we should do that. Jesus was not woke, and don't even get me started on Yahweh.
This is the same God who chose a nation of slaves to be his people.
And again, here's a God who chose a name, and this is liberal myth making. Liberal makers are now going to pretend, what a great God that chose slaves to be his people rather than ending slavery. I'm the all-powerful Almighty God, and look at me. I shame the powerful because I chose this humble nation of slaves to be my people. Why did you end slavery?
While
Your
he was
God
at
is
it.
useless.
As long as you're writing laws with your finger,
You know what I'm
Can
talking
there be an
about?
11th commandment? Can we just do that?
Seriously, 11 would be the perfect number.
About that. When he could have chosen
Let's
the
see, started
strongest,
13 and
the
none of them
richest,
banned
the
slavery.
most powerful people, he picked the last and the least. Why? To show us that he is a God who actively identifies with the powerless and the helpless and oppressed. He sides with those who have been forgotten. This is why I'm not as hard on the left as I am on the right as a Christian. The left
He
doesn't get
sides with
everything right.
those who have been forgotten by empowering the people who forgot them. He sticks up for the enslaved by giving all the wealth and power to the people who enslaved them. Why? Like, this is such brain rot. It is literally brain rot.
Where in the Bible does it say God thought long and hard before he took action? Where? It doesn't. It doesn't.
Christian
It
standards,
doesn't.
but in broad strokes, their
Reflection is
moral
not a strong
instincts line
suit.
up far closer to the heart of the gospel. Concern for the weak, compassion for the poor and oppressed, care for the marginalized. Those are not fringe ideas to Jesus. Those are his priorities. The left's mistakes are often the mistakes of excess mercy, of trying to include too much, forgive too much, or if possible, love too much. Or said more precisely, attempting to include, forgive, and love without sufficient wisdom or truth equally involved. But the important thing is that even when they fall short, they're still traveling in the right direction. Their hearts are attuned to the things God cares about. But for Christians on the right, their sin
Can you
is
pause
more
it real
severe
quick?
because
Can you
Yeah, go
pause
ahead.
it real quick? Okay, I have a problem with what he just said.
Oh, me too.
Their hearts are attuned to the things that God cares about. I know the author of that video means well. What he just said is effing ridiculous. If there were a God, and his God truly cared, the human body wouldn't work the way it does. It wouldn't have as many flaws, right? It would be a natural thing for people not to oppose a nationwide healthcare plan that helps people overcome those deficiencies that their body will have across their lifetime. I went to a funeral yesterday. It was of a doctor, and the doctor passed away. He had some trouble with his body. Thanksgiving Day, I'm looking at my best friend because he doesn't look well to me. He's having one of the worst days since he's had some serious pain issues in his life. Why can't God fix that? I'm here, my wife and I I've been living down here in her basement for like 6 months, 7 months, um, for free. And now my wife and daughter are joining here for free. So that part's being taken care of. But there are people whose their healthcare is fading. Their health is fading. They can't do it. If God truly loved people, he would love them enough not to give them these problems,
Yeah, also he's just
right?
doing
If
he's doing the liberal myth making, pretending that the Democrats are really a progressive party. This is another problem with the liberal myth making is that it actually legitimizes the Democratic Party as the left. It allows people to say things like, well, both sides are too extreme, and it's because the Republicans are too far to the right and the Democrats are too far to the left. When in reality, the Democrats are cucks, and again, they are controlled opposition. Again, this is professional wrestling, and they are paid to lose. Perfect example being the shutdown. We had a government shutdown over healthcare instead of the Democrats growing a pair and said we need universal healthcare and we're not going to do anything until we pass through universal healthcare. Instead, they completely caved when they had no political incentive to do so, and now our healthcare costs are going to double to quadruple. And then the Democrats, when they're lucky and they get to take back power, they're going to argue that, look, they're our heroes. And now they're going to push to do what? Bring us back a status quo where our healthcare costs were already too expensive. And do any of them actually support meaningfully universal healthcare? Will any of them meaningfully propose it and then do what is necessary to create the political power to actually make it a reality? Nope. We'll be talking 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now, we still won't have universal healthcare. A universal basic income, you can forget about it. Free college, that's a joke. Again, we live in a Christian world. And apparently we got Christians on the right and Christians on the left, but we can't do basic quality of life policy. I am not liberal. I am not progressive. I want to be those things, but I can't even imagine what those things look like. Because when I'm talking about, I think we should have free healthcare, free college options, universal basic income. I think pretty much everyone should make somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 just for existing. I support radical wealth distribution. There would be no billionaires. I don't even think. I think when I looked up the way my plan would work, I think nobody would be able to make more than like $5 million, because we would just be doing like basically everything goes into like a common fund. That way, everybody gets paid like crazy. Anyway,
Pocket
people
Locker
hear
and I philosophically disagree on that.
people hear about these things. Yeah, well, people hear about these things and they go, oh, "That's communist. That's socialist. You're an extreme leftist." I actually, be honest, I think those things are conservative. I think it's
I
2025. I think we've had a long history of science. I think we know the current system doesn't work. We have gross wealth inequalities. I get it. There be challenges. It doesn't work. The mathematics are, honestly, I'm going to fall asleep. I don't care what the real arguments are because the system we have now doesn't work. We,
well,
we, we have
Pocket
a broken
Locker.
system and people are like, oh, well, you're going too far. I don't care. And if you want to argue about a particular policy, let's do it some other time. This isn't the
Okay,
time for
I
that. My
just
point is,
just
most of these are basics. My point is, okay, I get it. You don't think we can pay people that much money. Nobody cares. Genuinely, nobody cares. The point is the most of these things are basic. Free health care. This is what I'm saying. And we keep having these arguments. My point is people treat it like these are far left arguments. They're not. Saudi Arabia does radical universal health care. There are radical, supposedly radical Islamic states that have way more reasonable social contracts. And so I don't even know what real liberal progressive policies would look like because our Overton window is shifted so far to the right that literally what most industrialized like European, especially Western European nations consider basic social contract stuff is considered like a radical Marxist fever dream in America. So My point is basically we can't have nice things, and we can't have nice things because people keep pretending that the Democratic Party is a leftist movement when in reality they are a conservative movement that reinforces the status quo.
Because they're supposed to know better. They have the text, they have the sermons, they have the example of Jesus himself, and yet their direction, the very orientation of their faith, points away from love, away from mercy, and away from compassion. That is what makes their failure different. The atheist or the secular progressive who shows kindness to the poor or fights for justice may not claim to follow
Hang on
Jesus,
a sec.
but they are
Archival Blob said Jesus did a bit more than not protest slavery. How parables use slavery as unquestioned assumptions of how the world works. Awesome. He keeps putting God in the position of slave master. Paul keeps calling Christians slaves of God. Archival, I don't know how long you've been hanging out, but I really appreciate your comment. And I talk about this all the time. Christianity is fundamentally the desire to be a slave. It is actually because of exactly what you said, because the core doctrine, again, free people don't call anyone Lord or Master. And it's one of the dirty, dirty tricks that we allow religious people to do. They play in our face about the truth when we know they're all full of shit. And they play in our face about freedom when we know that these fundamentalist religions are fundamentally at their core driven by their desire to be slaves. And I don't care how they put it. I don't care how they euphemize it. The idea that you were created and therefore God can do whatever he wants with you, slavery. The idea that God has a preordained purpose for you, slavery. The God that God has an ordained romantic partner for you that is the person you're truly supposed to be building a family with, slavery, right? All of this stuff is inherently slavery. And so again, that's another reason why I don't know why people don't have the bad taste in their mouth about these religions that we should. But yeah, that is, I 100% agree. I said I deconstructed from Christianity because I became too anarchist to accept God wanting to be, well, God. I feel that. I
are
feel that
walking in his
heavy.
footsteps whether they know it or not. The Christian who turns their back on those same people isn't just missing the point. They're betraying the Savior they claim to serve. That's why Jesus said, judgment begins with the household of God. Because it's one thing to wander in ignorance. It's another to sin against the light after receiving sight. To know the truth or claim to know it, yet still reject it. The point of all of this is not to tell anyone to be a Democrat or anything else for that matter. That is not what I'm saying. My personal belief is that Christians, especially in America, should reject all party affiliations. Political parties are worldly institutions focused on the things of men, not the things of God.
But let's take it one step further. Christians should reject politics altogether. Please stop voting. Please stop voting. Until further notice, you are being asked to volunteer. We're not passing laws to say you can't vote. Let's be very clear, because I don't want to hear all the crying about taking away their rights. You have every right to vote, but voting isn't the right thing to do because you're not an adult yet. So until you're ready to come to the secular big kids table, what? I'm allowed to have my opinion. I'm
Go
asking
ahead and
as a favor. Do us
I'm
all a
as a
favor
favor.
and please don't vote. Like, you're not responsible. Like, you believe, like, when you believe this stuff, you really should not. You're not an adult yet. Like, you're not ready. And again, like, y'all all have this weird thing because again, even those of you that think you're voting in the right direction, like, I don't trust you. So like, I'm just saying, focus on God, focus on your religion, stop voting.
Their goals are power, influence, and control, not righteousness, mercy, or truth. But that doesn't mean
No voting
Christians should
until
avoid
Christ
politics.
comes back. There you
Political
go, Bree.
decisions are spiritual decisions. That's why the prophets of the Old Testament didn't come just to call out individual sinners. They came to confront nations and their rulers, to rebuke kings for leading their people into sin and dysfunction, to warn of the disaster that would follow if the nation refused to change course.
But again, your fellow Christians are begging us for a king. And he said it's your job. He said it's their job to police their ranks. And I agree. The thing is, you failed at that job because you can't police the people who are actually right about your faith. This is exactly why
Repent
liberal
while
Christianity
there was
doesn't
still
work.
time to. In the same way, Christians today should let their political decisions reflect the inner heart of Christ,
There
the
you
one who
go.
challenged corrupt power and stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. And if the words I'm saying are offensive to you, then you're going to need to ask yourself some hard questions about what God it is you're truly serving.
Yeah, and why is it that the God you're truly serving can't seem to do anything about these assholes? Why? That's the thing. Like that would be my real question. I want to ask liberal progressive Christians, why do you suck at this so badly? Because I hear you. You keep trying to he said it, right? He said atheists look at the behavior of Christians and we're just so unimpressed and it makes Christianity look bad. So why are y'all so bad at this? Why can't you get other Christians to behave well? I don't understand. If you have God on your side, you have the scripture on your side, you guys have the correct interpretation of the gospel. I love you. You love me. We're a happy family. Why can't you seem to convince your other Christian brethren of your way? It's almost like maybe it's because you're full of shit, your God doesn't exist, and the scripture actually supports them more than it supports you. But what do I know? I'm not a Christian. What do you want to say to the people, my one black friend? We made it. We survived.
You have a right to vote if you're over the age of 18 and you are a U.S. citizen in the U.S.
But if you can't name at least
Is that
7 presidents, please don't.
no? I'm not saying that too, but I am saying take some time to become informed. Um, Being a single issue voter can be a very dangerous thing. Keep that in mind too. Um, Make sure that you are not voting against your own interest. If the candidate that you support lies on a near constant basis, one of the people they're lying to is probably you. And one of the people they're probably lying about is probably you. Just take that into account. If you are a person of faith and you want to participate in politics on whatever level, be sure to let your constituents know that your faith is going to influence your decision, um, your decisions, and there will be a lot of decisions. But at the same time, I think you need to read whatever your holy book is through thoroughly, because maybe you will learn in that process that you don't actually agree with a lot of what that book says, and you don't want to support a lot of what that book says, and you will never vote for a law that basically is against your own new moral principles. Um, my wrestling with the Bible was a fairly easy thing for me to do because I could be honest about it. I could say, I don't like this. God is approving of this, and there's no way I would. There is no way I would. There's no way I would agree to wipe out most of the people on the planet. There's just no circumstance where I'm going to sign off on that. God of the Bible didn't seem to mind. He repented that he made man, which is an odd thing for an omniscient being to do, by the way. Um, but I think you have to spend time thinking things through before you vote, and don't just blindly vote. As far as whether or not you should keep your faith or not, do you have liberal
But do you see
Christian
the
brain rot?
but do you see the link there?
Well,
In their
look,
faith, they've shown us that they're not the type of person that really thinks through and follows things
thinks
through
things
before
through.
they before.
Is the
So that's
talking snake a real talking
yeah,
snake,
like
or is it
but
an
see again, if you
allegory?
didn't think through
Can
that, do I
enable
really think
real
that
people,
you've
or are they an allegory? Go
right? So
ahead.
and if you haven't done that, do I really think you've brought through public policy at a high level? No, I don't.
Well, most people don't have time, so no, they don't.
then again, these are the things that I would literally say, like, no, I would say you're not a good candidate for voting. I'm being honest. You have every legal right to vote, just like you have every legal right to get behind
I
the, but there's a
I
test you have to
began by
pass.
saying become informed. You
Yeah,
have
no,
to
I
become
agree. I
informed.
agree. But I just think that if people are hearing this, that's the challenge, that you should do the informed part first. And if you don't care enough to get informed, then
I have to say this. We see this on the internet with a lot of Trump supporters who are very dissatisfied with him. Um, I think where Trump has succeeded is that he satisfied a need for people who felt marginalized to finally say what was really on their minds. He could say what was really on their minds. He could be the vessel for cruelty that they felt they couldn't be, only for him to come along later and betray something they needed liberals to protect. And they didn't realize that that meant more to them than the cruelty that they so just couldn't wait for someone to say out loud,
but
right?
see,
I couldn't wait for somebody to announce that to millions of people because that's how they felt.
but
Now they can't.
you touched on something really important. They needed liberals to protect. What they were,
That's right.
and what they were actually betting on was Trump losing. A lot of those people, because again, this is why they have to sit out the next election. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to show, look, there are consequences. And here's the thing that even in the video didn't touch on enough. And that, because you remember you talked about being a single issue voter. That's why I wanted to come back to it, because he said
Mhm.
these are the people that wrap their politics in the faith. They're the people that use the faith, right? And most of the people on the Christian right, they've always said they were single issue voters. Now it could change what the issue is. Most of them would say I'm single issue and it's abortion or whatever. But when you really pushed, the single issue wasn't abortion or the border or the economy or taxes. The single issue was always that they were Christian. The single issue was really, I'm Christian and that's why I vote conservative. And people have known this for generations. We have always allowed, especially white people, to go along with all sorts of harmful public policy, all sorts of racist, bigoted shit because they were Christian. And we knew that. Like, in other words, that was the effective shield. We've known for generations that the Republican Party is racist and has racism as its primary MO. But for generations, it's been okay to continue to vote conservative. Why? Because all you had to say was, I'm a Christian and I'm a conservative. Okay, fine, then it's okay. So when people act now like this is something like, oh my goodness, I can't believe the Christians are being all racist. Like, no, they've always been this way. And liberals have always been feckless losers who can't do anything to stop it. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, and it's why liberal Christianity doesn't work. We've really got to say, okay, enough is enough, because we're just tired. We're tired of being lied to. Tired of being lied to. We got to get out of here. What are your closing thoughts on today?
Um, one of the things I'm wrestling with is my interactions on social media, where I confront the people who are some of the people who are Trump supporters, not the ones that just believe in Donald Trump and think he's the greatest thing ever, and never present any evidence to back him up, and don't tell other people that they think he's the greatest thing ever. But the ones that do, and when I present evidence to show he's not, when I present evidence to show that he's supporting people who are abusers, that he is an abuser himself, he is a sexual predator, and stuff like that, and they just wave it away. When I mention things that happened 9 years ago that he's guilty of, and they just hand wave it away. When I mention January 6th, and they just hand wave it away. What I struggle with is that these aren't serious people, but they have an effect on some people who know less than them. I mentioned that I called someone out who misspelled moronic, and I asked him, "Why do you think that is?" I finally said, "You misspelled moronic. Why do you think that is?" Well, he had a response, and I didn't happen to catch when the thread was going where it put his response up there. So I don't even know what his response was, but he responded to it. And later I brought it up again. And he says, well, you can't really go by uh, things are going to get misspelled. You can't really use that. And I wanted to say, based on everything you've given me, you shouldn't try to insult someone else's intelligence when you're comparing it to your own. That's not the bar. He's got to know you are not the bar. And people like him are not the bar. And I don't want to shame people. I don't. I don't think we get anything out of it unless it makes them quit doing what they're doing because they realize I'm not the person to be putting forth my arguments because your arguments aren't good. Um, but I'm wondering now if I'm wrong. I'm wondering now if I should say, look, this person approached me with cruelty without saying anything that is incorrect. I could offend this person to the nth degree just by telling the truth. Because what do we know of that hurts more than that when it's just a verbal exchange? Almost nothing. But as I have said here on Hot Program, they are not my audience. Their audience is my audience. The people cheering them on might actually be rational and just haven't discovered that yet. So maybe that's who I should be directing my thoughts towards. Now I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't feel like giving up, but I do feel like maybe being a little bit more saying the stuff I don't say
So I think you've
in a
got
way
to
I don't
ask.
say it
So
might get me there.
you got to ask who are you centering and why? You know, who is this about? Am I engaging with this person because I want to see them change? Am I engaging with this person because I think they're influencing someone who would not otherwise be influenced in that way? Is it because I think there's harm to this other group that I care about? I think for most people, you know, the focus isn't really, you just got to think critically about that because I think a lot of times there's a misalignment. I think a lot of times people might say, "Oh, I'm concerned about the harm caused to this group, or I'm concerned about the harm caused to these marginalized people." It's like, yeah, but then arguing with this dude over here who's committed to harming these people and isn't really interested in being influenced in that way might be a waste of time.
Might be.
But
Might be. Good point.
I do think shame is appropriate. I think part of the liberal myth making is um, liberal ideology is dominated by white people, and it reflects white privilege. And white privilege constructs a society that will always negotiate powers in ways that reinforce white supremacy. So it's always supposed to be the oppressor class has the ability to use force. When powerful, corrupt motherfuckers take over the government, they can then use the full weight of the government. When the police force is racist, the police force gets to use police brutality as a means of controlling an oppressed class. But then the oppressed class is supposed to always say, I don't want to make the oppressors uncomfortable. I don't want to shame them. I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to humiliate them. I don't want to out them. I don't want to cancel them. I don't want to take their jobs. You know, it's there's always supposed to be some sort of means of accountability without consequence. The reality is consequence is the key to accountability. And then from there you have to say, if we're really focused on being pro-social, if we're really focused on not being harmful, then these tools are actually incredibly important. Why? Specifically because they're our least harmful means of bringing consequences. So what happens is it's like by not being willing to shame people, we take our most effective tool off the table that also happens to be our most compassionate, humanizing tool, right? Because everything else is worse than that. You know, to protest against people publicly should be considered more severe. To, you know, actually try to get somebody fired or something like that is more severe. To physically attack somebody is more severe. To actually pass laws to say, oh, you can't say this or that is actually more severe. All we're saying is shame. Shame is like the perfectly normal human thing we have to do, which is like,
I
hey, you just did a thing we don't think people should. It's not you. It's not. Trust me, it's not you. It's this entire fucking atheist space that wants to, you know, find a comfortable way to do opposition. And it's just my message that I just don't think that that's the real history of actual resistance.
Well, Pocket Locker, you've hit upon something. I have said to these individuals, you are addicted to shame. That is why you spell moronic wrong. So someone can shame you for it. That is why they choose the wrong side of saying, you know, being a sexual predator is wrong. And they'll say, well, no, not necessarily in this situation. Well, they're justifying Trump being that way, right? And I'm going, you are addicted to shame. Donald Trump, I'll say it to his face, he is addicted to shame. That's why he keeps doing shameful things, not to get away with them, but the shame, I think, is what he's hoping for, right? Because, oh, look, somebody paid attention to what I did. I think that's what he needs. He needs it.
Sumami said, "I'm ringing the bell behind their asses." Shame. No, I'm with you. Because here's the thing. Faith said it should be focused on ideas. Yeah, of course. But here's the thing. I think we do, and this is another thing we do, especially as deconverts. Religions and cults use certain tools because they work. We talk about like the bite model of being in a high control group. Okay, so I get it. We don't want to be in a cult. But just because a cult does something doesn't mean that by definition is now something we shouldn't do. So yes, I do realize religions shame people and religions use shame in a way that is very toxic. And as people who are coming out of those toxic cultures, there's sort of a natural tendency to want to avoid doing to others what that cult just did to you. But that doesn't mean everything the cult did was wrong in and of itself. It just means you have to, that when it was contextualized in that particular context, it was being used toxically. But a cult isn't wrong to say like, hey, we have really strong norms of what we consider to be ethical and moral behavior. And we use informal means, right? This is like, guys, take a basic sociology class, you know, something a lot of you have done, but is you know, this type of basic education is missing from people. Like we identify that there are formal and informal means of social control. Nobody would ever take a sociology class or an anthropology class or anything about culture and not come away understanding that human beings have always had an interest and a need to control the behavior of other people. That's how we create a society, right? And most of us that are thinking we're progressive and liberal and all this type of freedom, you know, all that type of stuff, informal means should be very important to you, because part of what's important to liberal philosophy and liberal ideology, right, is freedom and not having a government be unnecessarily restrictive. Well, a government has to be unnecessarily restrictive if the people won't do that on their own. If the people in society made it such that certain things were tolerated versus untolerated, there'd be no need to create laws about them. I wouldn't have to make a law that says you can't steal stuff if people were so ashamed at the consequences of stealing that nobody stole. If stealing wasn't a public problem, there'd be no need for public policy to address it. So for everybody that's really serious, like, I have to preserve religious freedom. I have to reserve freedom of speech. I can't live in a country that forces people out of religion. I can't live in a country that forces people to do. Okay, then you as a person need to step up and give our social interactions the weight of the force so that the legal system doesn't have to do it. So when I'm talking about shame, I'm saying, no, shame is a really fucking important tool for humans to signal to other humans, hey, this is not the way to go. And it's a powerful tool because, again, if it's utilized correctly and it's corrective, we don't have to do anything more. And we can restrict it to the ideas like Faith says. So somebody can come along and say, I hate black people because their culture is lazy. And somebody can go, whoa, what is that? That's racist, my dude. And do you not know anything about, the societal structures that produce this culture that you're attacking? And then you spend a couple minutes talking to them and they go, oh my goodness, like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I said that. Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't thinking. Right. Then you go, no. It's all good. If you'd have known better, you'd have done better. Like, it's cool. You didn't know. Like, we put you on game. Like, you're good to go. And they say, oh, I don't feel that way anymore. I'm really sorry. I didn't hurt you. But oh my God, don't worry about it. It's all good. Right. So that's how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to use shame to motivate people into wanting to do better. Then because they don't want to be associated with the bad feeling and the shame, they actually have real motivation to improve themselves. Then they improve themselves and we get to immediately remove the shame and restore them to full participation again. That's how it's supposed to work. But when we refuse to even do that, what happens is a person gets to say, well, I don't personally hate LGBTQ people, but my God says it's an abomination and I'm standing on business for Jesus. And then we go, well, it is their religion and, it's their religion that says it. So I guess we can't, it's like,
Well,
stop
no,
that.
I can say, why would you want to be a part of that?
Why would
I'm
you
not
want to
someone
be
who's
a part of that? Exactly.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be a part of that? That's all we got to start with right there. Why would you want to be a part of that? All right, this has been a long episode. We love y'all. We had over 30 people watching today. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I hope y'all come back. Really appreciate it. Chat's absolutely been on fire. Please, if you're watching later, answer the question of the day in the comments section. The question of the day is always in the description. Also, you can check out our Discord and come hang out in our virtual office and work adventure, our live headquarters, if you want to link up with the gang. There's also links in the descriptions if you want to make a one-time donation or become a member through Ko-Fi. Thanks to all of the mods. Thanks to everybody that's in the chat. Please do hit the like button on your way out. And as always, be good to yourselves.
And donate money so I can get my $5 back. Because Pocket Locker didn't pay that.
Yeah, invest your contractors.
Invest your contractors and each other.